Welcome to another edition of the Insider Mailbag, brought to you by Red Raider Outfitter, the fans' favorite since 1975. I'm Jared Johnson, and it's been a minute since we've done one of these, but I thought it'd be a good time with spring ball wrapping up and, the NFL draft this week and just, the transfer portal stuff going on in basketball. But almost all these questions are centered around spring ball and Texas Tech football. Great questions from subscribers, so let's dive right into them. The first one comes from Blake65, who wants to know about names in the portal that Tech is after. Yeah, there was actually a recent offer that went out to a linebacker in the transfer portal, and that's Connor Neer out of Fair State. Of course, that's Division II. National champ, All-American. It was an interesting offer, but that is a position that Texas Tech is looking to add possibly this offseason, obviously with that offer. There's a couple more. I think it might surprise people that they're looking into a couple of different positions. I think, safety's one of them. They'd like to add a little more depth there at that position. Tight end is one, and maybe even running back. So we'll have to see if the right guy, if they find the right guys in the portal and how many spots they have. I know there's actually been some attrition, but really it's been some guys, not necessarily processed, but guys that probably aren't going to play or weren't going to play who jumped in the portal. And almost all of them here recently after spring ball, the offers they're getting, the places they're going to, they're smaller schools. So this was something that needed to happen for Texas Tech to get at and under the 85 scholarship limit. And very good roster, a lot of depth, but there's still some, not really holes, but some positions they'd like to bolster. And in terms of running back and tight end and safety, I don't know. I haven't seen or talked to anybody about targets they like right now. It's just that those are positions they'd like to get a little stronger at. And then obviously linebacker, if they could add a little more veteran depth. Connor Neer is the first guy to pop up there, so we'll definitely be all over that and keep you up to date on what goes on with him. Next question comes from Ryden Fearless, who asks, he says, you saw spring practices in the spring game. Give us a thumbnail on how the quarterbacks performed this spring. Well, Mighty Joe and I talked about it after the spring game, and I've said it before and in years past that, evaluating quarterbacks in the spring, in the offseason, when they're not, having to worry about contact, getting hit, it's a different animal. But in terms of the way these quarterbacks looked, Shuck, he's a known quantity, as is Baron Morton to a lesser degree. Shuck, of course, had that great end of the season. He started and they won the last 4 games of the season after he suffered another really serious injury at the start of last year. That was 2 years in a row where he had serious injuries. But he was able to come back and finish strong last year. Of course, he was MVP of the Texas Bowl against Ole Miss. In terms of in the spring, when I saw him, he looked great. In total command of the offense. To me, it's clearly his team. Zach Kidley really likes Tyler Shuck. He likes the way he prepares. He likes the amount of time he puts into it in terms of film and all that, and just establishing a rapport with his teammates, just the leadership quality. But, I mean, he's 6'5", 230, has a great arm. He could run, as we've seen. We saw him run for over 100 yards in the Texas Bowl, but he also ripped off like a 27-yard run on an option where he, obviously he wasn't touched, or they would have blown the play dead. But he showed off that speed. And really a spring game that was dominated by the defense. That was one of the highlights by the offense. But Shuck did throw 2 interceptions. One of them was definitely deflected. It was like his first pass of the spring game, second play of the spring game, right up in the air to C.J. Baskerville's hands, the safety who transferred in this offseason. But overall, Shuck had a really good spring. I expect him to be the starter unless he's injured for next season. Now, Baron Morton, I got to be honest, I thought he looked great in spring. He's added some really good weight. He's noticeably bigger than when he came on campus a couple of years ago. That's weight he needed to add to take some punishment. He showed some real promise, specifically in that Oklahoma State start before he got injured. And, he has one of the quickest releases I've ever seen. He looked so much better this spring just simply throwing the ball than he did last spring. I came away really impressed. I can't wait to see I actually really like Tyler Shuck. I think he should be the guy, but I can't wait to see, just from the entertainment value, what this offense is going to look like with Baron Morton running it, because when it's really he's the guy. When after Shuck, I'm assuming, even though I think he has one more year after this, I think this is Shuck's final run. He's going to go to the NFL after this. And then I think it'll be turned over to Baron Morton. And I got to tell you, I think Texas Tech could win a lot of games with either quarterback. And I think they are going to win a lot of games next year, no matter which quarterback is starting. I really like Baron Morton. I think he's going to be a great player. He will, especially when he's gaining some experience, he will turn the ball over some. He threw an interception on the goal line in the spring game. He also had a big touchdown to Loic Fouonji, and looked good overall. But that's something to watch, as he has such confidence in his arm, and rightfully so, that he'll try and force things in there. And I think he is turnover prone. Now, on the other hand, finally, there's true freshman Jake Strong, who, I thought he looked really good in the spring game. And he didn't, obviously being the third quarterback, the young freshman, he's an early enrollee. He could still be in high school right now. But instead, he's at Tech early, and he's out there developing, getting better. And he has a good arm. We know he can run a little bit. I really liked a couple of the throws he made. He made one specific throw. It was actually incomplete, but it was over the cornerback's head and in front of the safety in a zone. It was a deep throw. It was like, 25, 30 yards. It was a blitz. He had pressure on him. And he delivered a really great throw where only the receiver could have gotten it. And if it would have been Jaron Bradley or Loic Fouonji or J.J. Sparby, one of those bigger guys, Mason Tharp, the 6'9" tight end for sure, they probably would have come down with that pass. And it would have been a big completion. He looked good. I think he's going to be good. He has a lot of potential. He was really good at Justin Northwest High School, and I like the kid. And I think down the road he might be the real deal. But I'm not going to say I know that for sure after seeing him throw mostly against air in spring ball. But I thought the quarterbacks overall looked really good. It's a really good quarterback room. TTU Dad 2012 says, based on what you've seen in the spring, where do I see the offense and defense rank? Well, the offense better be top 20, right? I mean, it should be really top 15 based on the production they have coming back. Taj Brooks looks great, and I like Cameron Valdez, Bryson Donnell. I like the receiving core overall. It's experienced. It has good size, really quick inside receivers as well. Pretty good tight ends too. I think the offensive line is going to be better than it was last year overall. So, yeah, I expect the offense to be top 15, maybe even top 10. I know they're expecting to be one of the very best statistically in the country. Defensively, I don't remember where they finished last year. Anybody who watched all their games and has followed Texas Tech for years knows that defense was way better, especially on third downs. And when it got deep in their territory, Tim DeRuyter was great at dialing up pressure to, as he liked to call it, put out fires. Whether the offense had turned the ball over or just the defense was in a bad situation, them keeping the other team from putting up points in bunches, and stopping them in critical situations like that was, huge. Was a key to the season. So, but in terms of ranking, like yards allowed or points allowed, I think if they're in the top 75, this team's going to be really good. I think it could be even around top 50. And if that's the case, given just the way, because Tech's going to run some up-tempo offensively, other team's going to get a lot of snaps, more than likely. If that's the case, if they're top 50, then you're definitely talking about Tech contending for a Big 12 title. If they're better than top 50, they get to be like top 40 or something like that, then forget about it. Because the offense is going to put up points and move the ball around. If the defense, improves dramatically too in terms of statistics, all those statistics, then just look out. OBX Raider says, what players have changed positions over the spring, and what are my thoughts on those changes? I mean, you have probably like at least 10 guys this offseason who have changed positions, but I'm going to name one on both sides of the ball. I mean, these are the big ones that I think we should focus on. Josiah Pierre moving from outside linebacker to inside linebacker, and he's going to be the guy. He is more than likely going to be your leading tackler. If he's not your leading tackler, he'll be your second leading tackler. He looks great. Really big, fast linebacker. Originally went to Florida, transferred in a couple years ago. Was okay his first year here, didn't play a whole lot. Last year, kind of a slow start, to be honest, but toward the end of the season, he really came on, made some big plays, had some big sacks. He had a sack late in the Kansas game that sealed the victory. And don't forget, Kansas was pretty dang good last year. They were considered probably the better team going into that game than Texas Tech, though Tech had a much better end of the season. But he made a couple of plays. It wasn't just that game. He made a couple of plays late in the season that were huge, and overall played some really sound football. He looked really good at spring. Just watching him in a couple of these drills, he looks really good running. He's huge. He's one of those guys. He's one of those first off the bus, like, wow, look at that dude. Like, that's a scary dude. But a really good guy. I like interviewing him and talking with him and what he has to say. He's thoughtful and articulate, and I think a really good person to have at that inside linebacker position because he's known as a film guy as well. So that's huge. And then Dennis Wilburn, who started, he was the surprise center. He won quite honestly, he won the starting center job in training camp last year or fall camp, and he's really a guard. And so now they brought in Rusty Stotts from the transfer portal from Western Kentucky, the all-conference player who played for Zach Kittley before, and he's going to be the starting center. And then Dennis Wilburn is playing right guard or left guard. I think it's maybe left guard. He's playing one of the guard spots, and he looks really good. Cole Spencer, who was also from Western Kentucky the previous year, who transferred in but had to sit out all last year with an injury, he's playing the other guard spot. So I think the interior offensive line has really been solidified. Wilburn was actually pretty dang good at center last year, and the offensive line kept getting better as the season went on, and I think he was a big part of that. He played really well. He's a big dude, 325 pounds, a powerful guy. I like him at the guard position, and of course getting Stotts in there is huge. Those two position changes are the biggest ones to me. There are a couple other ones, guys down the depth chart, but that's who I'd be focused on going into next season, those two changes. LB Man says, he's been asking me this a couple of times, and I understand. He asked me, he said, were you able to determine the capacity for the Jones for home games this upcoming season? Also, where will teams dress out, particularly the visiting ones? Yeah, the running joke is that opposing teams are going to have to dress on the bus, right, because of the deal. I'm not sure exactly where on both these. I talked with a couple people in the program. These are high-ranking people in the program who usually know things, and they said, look, they don't have the capacity drawn out yet. They don't know for sure what it's going to be. It's going to be just a little bit less than what it normally is, which is over about 60,000 is the number. So I wouldn't expect like a whole lot less, but it will be less than next year. They don't have an official number yet. When they do, I will post it on the board for sure. But yeah, they'll find some place. They're going to have a place for the opposing team to dress. They're not going to have to dress on the bus like a lot of people have been saying. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be a challenge next season while they're doing the renovations. But once it's all done, it's going to be sweet. Tex Red Raider says, with the major concerns Tech still has at tackle, do I see Tech going out and trying to find a stud in the portal, even if he only has 1 year of eligibility to remain? Yeah, they would do a 1 year fix if they found somebody that was perfect. They're going to say publicly all the right things about Monroe Mills, who I actually kind of like. I think he's pretty good at right tackle. Let's see how he does at left tackle. I thought he had a pretty good year last year. I was nervous about him, but overall I thought he was good. Caleb Rogers has just been a problem. It'd be disingenuous to try and say otherwise. Now, the coaching staff can't just bury him. And McGuire was open about him during the season. I asked about Rogers specifically a lot in those press conferences during the week. And, he didn't shy away from him, but he wants to protect his guys. Rogers has been a captain. He's played a lot of football, actually. But, it's one of those things like, if you're a really good catcher, but one or two balls get past you at a critical part of the game, I mean, how good of a catcher are you? And that's kind of where we're at with Caleb Rogers. I mean, it's great if he, blocks well and does a good job for most of the game, but if he still is allowing, a pass rusher to get by him once or twice a game and come up with a big sack or get his quarterback hurt, I mean, that's not good. He's costing the team, and that's what we've seen with him. Really struggle with athletic pass rushers. And that's kind of what the kind of dudes that tackles have to contend with. There were some really good defensive linemen in the Big 12 last year. I mean, and there's going to be almost every year, but there really was last year. And some of them just ate them up. So that's another position change. Oh, by the way, I should have mentioned, last question was, it's just been in the works for so long, it's not on my mind, but Monroe Mills and Caleb Rogers have flipped Monroe was on the right side, now he's on the left side, and vice versa. Rogers has gone back to right side where he started as a freshman. So hopefully that will help. But the first time we saw them, it didn't look good. Now some of that is because, and that was in the spring game, man, Miles Cole and Steve Linton, that transfer in from Syracuse, just ate the tackles up. They were living in the backfield against Monroe Mills and Caleb Rogers. I think those guys are going to be really good. That's a big part of the defensive improvement I was talking about earlier in this mailbag. But, I mean, these tackles are going to face really good pass rushers, whether it be against Oregon or the TCUs or, you know, all those, the Baylors, all those teams have good athletic defensive linemen. So, it's a concern. I'm not saying it's the top priority to get a tackle, but it's definitely... If they get to a certain point in the summer, they're like, look, we need another tackle. Joey McGuire will do whatever is possible to find some guy. Now, how many tackles are out there? It's kind of like having a prized big man in the portal in basketball. Those guys, I mean, they go pretty quick on the market. You know, I mean, they hit the market and teams just really recruit those guys hard because they're invaluable. So, you know, it's going to have to be the right guy with the right fit, and but yeah, even with just 1 year eligibility, 1 year fix right now, I believe they would do that for sure. All right, final question comes from Tech Freak, who says, how do special teams look, and does Tech have an identified punt returner? Yeah, punt returner is Miles Price, I believe. I think he's going to be the guy. Some other guys to keep in mind, Coy Eakin. He was a freshman last year. I think he redshirted actually because of injury, but he's not necessarily a burner. But he's not slow. He's an outside receiver. He was a MVP of the state championship game that Stephenville won 2 years ago. I think he led the nation receiving, but he was also a really good punt returner. Played some defense as well. But I know Joey McGuire likes him as his potential as a punt returner. So that's somebody to keep an eye on. I wonder if Andre McCray, who is a very fast guy, the transfer in from Austin Peay. I saw him at least in practice returning some punts. So it's a lot of receivers, I think, that are getting looked at right now primarily, which is normally the case. Nehemiah Martinez, I think he could be good at that, in that role as well. But in terms of special teams overall, the kickers look good. In the spring game, they made all their kicks. I actually asked McGuire about it after the spring game. He said, yeah, that he feels good about where they are at every position except kickoff specialists. And that is critical, getting touchbacks instead of allowing teams to return, because, I mean, one big kick return can cost you a game and then cost you your season. So that is a concern. If he's saying he's concerned about it, then there's a concern. And if they have to bring in like a sixth kicker, however many they have on the roster at this point, they will. I know at one point they were auditioning Austin McNamara, the punter, as possibly doing that, but I don't know if that's not working out or what. But bottom line is the biggest concern right now is kickoff specialists. But overall, special teams, from everything I saw and everything I've heard, they look good. But that's going to do it. Another great round of questions from Inside the Red Raiders subscribers. I really appreciate it. Thank you for that, and thank you for watching. And until next time.